Okay, so we've talked a little bit about using conditionals and about if and else. So let's continue talking about that, but I'm going to go ahead and comment this stuff out. So when you're commenting stuff out like this in a block, you can just use the control key on your keyboard. Unless you're on a Mac, then it's command. But you use the slash key that you would use when you would normally put a comment in. So if I go, I'm on a Mac, so if I go command slash, it just comments out that whole block of code. And I want to block out all of this stuff so I can kind of start over down here. And I'm going to start out by creating a roll variable, and we're going to simulate a roll of a die. So we're going to go ahead and do math.random, and then I'm going to multiply that by 6 and add 1, because 1 is my minimum number when I'm rolling a die. And then I'm going to go ahead and print out your roll was, and concatenate roll on there. So that'll print out my roll was whatever number this is, 1 through 6. Okay, so then let's go ahead and say that if roll is less than or equal to 3, that we're going to say a couple different things here. So first of all, I'm going to put brackets in there, and I'm going to print out your roll was low. Okay, and then I'm going to also print out your roll didn't win. Okay, so let's just talk about brackets one more time. So if I include those brackets and we run this, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. So it prints out your roll was 2. Since my roll was 2, that is less than or equal to 3, and it's going to print out your roll was low, your roll didn't win. Okay. If I run it again, let's hope that I get a number that's a little bit bigger here. So 3, not big enough. Let's run it one more time. I got a 3 again. Okay, your roll was 5. So now I rolled a 5. 5 is not less than or equal to 3, and so it's not going to print out your roll was low or your roll didn't win. Okay? If I take these brackets away and I get another number like 4, 5, or 6, a number that's not less than or equal to 3, okay, your roll was 6, it still says your roll didn't win. Okay, so the way that it reads this, because I didn't include the brackets, is basically the same as if I had programmed it like this. Okay, so when we use an if, the if continues until either we see starting brackets and ending brackets, or if there are no brackets, it just goes up until the next semicolon. Okay, so we want to include those brackets and then put this stuff inside of the brackets so that I have 2 instructions that go with this condition. Okay? Another error that people make a lot of times when they're using if is, especially when they're first learning it, is they put a semicolon there. And just to kind of show you what's happening there, okay, here I rolled a 3 and it says your roll was low, your roll didn't win, so it seems like, well, that should be fine, but let's go ahead and run it again. This time it says your roll was 6, your roll was low, your roll didn't win. So it turns out that when you put a semicolon here, like we said, if there are no brackets, okay, it'll go to the next semicolon. So this is saying basically if roll was less than or equal to 3, do nothing, then these brackets are just there, and it's as if they're like this. Okay, it's not connected to the if at all. So this if is like really just doing nothing because I put that semicolon there. So we don't want to put a semicolon after an if. If we want more than one thing to happen, we just want to put the brackets in there. Okay, let's talk about if the roll isn't less than or equal to 3. Okay, so one way to do that is to say if roll is greater than 3. Okay, and then we could say something like system.out.print your roll was high. Okay, and then we could go ahead and run that. Okay, your roll was 6, your roll was high. All right. Or if we don't want to use an else here, since these are kind of opposites of each other, right? If the roll wasn't less than or equal to 3, then it must have been greater than 3. Then we can replace this with an else, like we talked about already. Okay, and that'll run the exact same way as what we just saw. When this is false, it automatically goes to the else clause and fills that stuff in. Okay, so let's say that we want to make a decision inside of here. So we say, okay, your roll was high, but did you win or not? So let's say that the only way that you win is if you roll a 6. Well, then we can do what's called a nested if. Okay, so a nested if is an if inside another if or an else. So basically it's like we want to make another decision after we've made one decision. So if roll is less than or equal to 3, we're going to do this stuff. If roll is not less than or equal to 3, we're going to do this stuff. Now let's go ahead and check if roll equals 6. Okay, so if roll equals 6, then we're going to print out system.out.println. Okay, and we're going to put in here you win. Okay, now let's see. I got a bunch of 6s earlier, so let's see if my luck continues here. Okay, awesome. Your roll was 6. Your roll was high. You win. Okay, so the roll was 6. Your roll is 6. That roll is not less than or equal to 3, so we go to the else. We do all the stuff that's inside of here. Your roll was high, and since roll was equal to 6, it's printing out you win. Okay, let's see if I get a 4 or a 5, what happens. Okay, you roll was a 1. Okay, we already saw that example. Let's see if I can get like a 4 or 5 here. All right, one more try here. No, okay, one more try. Okay, your roll was 5, your roll was high, okay? So 5 is not less than or equal to 3, so we're going to the else. Your roll was high. The roll was not equal to 6, so it didn't print out you win, but it did print out your roll was high. So hopefully that's making a lot of sense to you. And we're just going to talk about one last thing here before we're done, and that is using modulus inside of one of these ifs. So we can use modulus, and again, remember that that is the percent sign, to ascertain or to figure out whether a number is a multiple of another number. All right, and the way that we do that is we use an if, and then we can figure out, in this case, let's try to figure out if roll is an even number. Okay, so what we know about even numbers is that they're all multiples of 2, and what that means is that if I divide an even number by 2, I should get a remainder that's equal to 0. All right, so I should get a remainder when I divide this thing by 2 and I get a remainder. That remainder should equal 0, and if it does, then that'll tell me that roll is even. Okay, so then I can go ahead underneath there. Remember, this is another way that you can format an if. You can say, if this condition is true, then do this line of code. Okay, and I'm going to print out your roll was even. Okay, so let's see if that works for me. Okay, your roll was 2, your roll was low, your roll didn't win, your roll was even. All right, so it's not going to print that out if I get an odd number. So your roll was 5, your roll was high. Doesn't print out your roll was even because this is false. When I take 5 mod 2, I get a remainder of 1. 1 does not equal 0, so I don't get that. And if I want to say else your roll was odd, well, then that's how I would do that. Okay, and so then if I run that again, let's see if I get another odd number here. Okay, that was a 2. Okay, there we go. Your roll is 5. Your roll was high. Again, that's from here. Okay, so not less than or equal to 3. Your roll was high. It wasn't 6. We don't see you win. Roll mod 2 is 1. that does not equal 0, so we're going to the else, and we're getting your roll was odd. All right. So we saw a couple different things here, nesting ifs, okay, how the brackets work, not using a semicolon, and then also how to use modulus to tell if a number is a multiple of another. So we know that roll is a multiple of 2 now, because when we're divided by 2, we get a remainder equal to 0.